Hello and welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. Hard to believe that football will be on television again in the next few weeks. I, being a big fan of football and football history as well, especially the rival leagues that competed with the NFL. And one of the leagues was the World Football League that existed from 1974 to 1975. I have discussed that league before, the history of it. But one of the words that comes up when I read about the World Football League is the Hemmeter Plan, and Chris Hemmeter was the president of the World Football League in 1975, and the 1974 league had all kinds of financial problems. They owed money to a cleaning business. The sheriff's department had writs against a team and repossessed their uniforms, and there was one team where the coaches had to supply toilet paper for the locker rooms, and that team was in a financial mess. And Chris Hemmeter came up with what was called the new World Football League. It didn't have it wasn't obligated to the debts of the 1974 WFL, and the 1974 league came out of California. The 1975 league came out of Pennsylvania. And here's a picture of Christopher B. Hemmeter right here. And I'm going to read a little bit on what this plan was all about, the Hemmeter Plan, the particulars on it. You have to pretty much be an accountant to be able to understand this. I had trouble following it, but I'm going to go ahead and read what I've got on it. The basic idea behind the Hemmeter Plan is to make as many of a team's costs possible variable costs, that is, costs which vary directly in relation to the team's revenues. As an example, if Company A agrees to pay Company B revenues for some service, then the amount of Company A pays out varies directly with the amount of money it takes in. If Company A makes a lot of money, both it and Company B make a lot. If it makes no money at all, both it and Company B get nothing. The important point to understand, however, is that in the latter case, if Company A has agreed to pay Company B a flat sum, say $10,000 for the service, it would have to pay out $10,000 despite the fact that it had made no money. Obviously, the best way to guarantee that your company never had any losses would be to put all expenses on a variable base. That is virtually impossible, of course, but the closer one can come to it, the less one risks losing. In the case of the World Football League, the Hemmeter Plan calls for making players' and coaches' salaries, stadium rentals, and league assessments variable costs. The Hemmeter Plan allocates 42% to salaries, 3% to the injured reserve pool, 10% to stadiums, and roughly 6% to the league. That leaves approximately 39% of revenues to be applied to those areas where percentages cannot be used, such as office rent, front office salaries, telephone and telegraph costs, etc. By strict budgeting, the Hemmeter Plan has put a ceiling on these costs of $650,000. By setting these guidelines, the Hemmeter Plan has made it possible for the World Football League to operate as a reasonable financial entity in 1975. $650,000 is 39% of approximately $1.7 million. That means that a team can break even if it earns that amount, since it will be able to pay all its fixed costs. As a safeguard, the Hemmeter Plan has required that all teams participating in the league this year place before the season begins. Even if the league averages just half the paid attendance it did in 1974, the $545,000, which allow teams to cover all their fixed costs for 3 years. What was truly revolutionary in the WFL is, in 1975, the idea of paying player salaries based on a percentage of revenues. The average salary of the WFL this season would be 1% of a team's income after taxes. WFL team incomes in 1974 ranged between 1.1 to 2.85 million. With gate sharing, they could be grouped much closer together in 1975. If a team this year takes in 2 million, its average player would earn 20,000. On the other hand, if WFL teams earn 7 million, that many NFL teams did last year, the average player would earn a whopping 70,000 a year. That's peanuts compared to what these NFL players make today. WFL teams need only earn half as much as NFL clubs for the average WFL salary to equal the average NFL salary. The important fact to understand is that a team will only be paying its players in relation to the money it takes in. If a team wishes to pay a player more money than it can account for with percentages, it must escrow the extra money in advance. That was some of these players that had these $1 million contracts, which was unusual back in those days. By paying players on this basis, WFL teams will always be assured of meeting their payrolls. Perhaps more importantly, the WFL players will be earning a share of their team's businesses and consequently will take greater interest in the success, financial as well as competitive, of their teams. Under the Hemmeter Plan, there will be basically 3 types of player contracts. First one will be on a straight percentage basis, and since there are roughly 42 coaches and players and 42% allocated to salary, the average contract will call for 1%. The second type of contract calls for a percentage and a fixed amount, say 1% plus $10,000. In this case, the team must escrow the $10,000 in advance. Lastly, there is a contract for a fixed amount. Each team in the league has been given a conservative estimate of its revenues, which it can apply against a fixed contract. For instance, if a team's estimate is $1.5 million and a player asks for $25,000, the team can allocate 1% to that player, or $15,000, and only be required to escrow the remaining $10,000. The team can allocate the entire amount to percentages or put it all in an escrow account, but in no case can the total number of percentage points given out surpass the 42% permitted. With these safeguards, all contracts will be honored. As a backup for the Hemmeter Plan, the WFL has hired the national firm of Haskins & Sells. Bookkeeping on every team will be done in the exact same manner, and a representative from Haskins & Sells will visit each team each week to review the books. Each team will have several bank accounts, including one for coaches and players' salaries, stadium rental, league assessments, and operating expenses. Money will be deposited into each of these accounts following each game in the exact percentages called for in the Hemmeter Plan. Any money drawn from any account other than the one for operating expenses requires league sanction for release of funds. In this manner, the league guarantees a just accounting for everyone being paid on a percentage basis, and also guarantees that the Hemmeter Plan will be followed every last detail. The 1975, the league had 11 teams and was down to 10. I believe after 4 games, the league disbanded the Chicago franchise, the Chicago Winds. What I was reading here, President Chris Hemmeter announced the move at the WFL's office, saying that the commitment by the Chicago Investor Group concerning minimum capital requirements had not been fulfilled. Hemmeter said the expulsion move was approved by the WFL's Board of Governors, who rejected a vote appeal to continue in the league. The vote was 10-1, with only the Winds voting to remain in the league. And the league itself folded that year. Article from October 23rd, 1975. Unable to attract many fans, unable to sign many named players, and unable to overcome the bad memories of 1974, the World Football League gave up its dream of remaining respectability and folded in mid-season yesterday. Chris Hemmeter, the Hawaiian millionaire who rescued the WFL from almost certain death last winter with a financing formula that tied player salaries to ticket sales, headed back to his island home yesterday after announcing there was no point in the league going on. As far as known, Hemmeter's WFL did not lie to the public, did not falsify attendance figures, and did not fail to pay its players, all of which were done by some teams in the 1974 league. But the WFL was still unable to attract paying customers, and its owners finally gave up, and the league immediately ceased operations. Basically, Chris Hemmeter said, you have a good product, but if the product doesn't have customer appeal, it's worthless. And the league wasn't making money, wasn't able to sign the big name players. So it folded. The Chicago Winds that year tried to sign Joe Namath, and he decided to remain in the NFL. He considered the offer, but said no. I wish the WFL well. And and that was a blow to the Chicago franchise. And that's basically what I was able to get on a thing called the Hemmeter Plan. Pretty interesting. And as always, thanks for watching.